Welcome to Customer Love Stories, a podcast where we investigate why certain brands are loved or not loved by their customers. I'm your host, Robi Ganguly, CEO and co-founder of Apptentive. For those of you who don't know, Apptentive is a Seattle-based voice of the customer solution that allows some of the world's most beloved brands to capture invaluable feedback across the mobile customer journey and take immediate action to win back customers and activate fans at scale. Today, I'm joined by Shauna Swerland. You're the CEO, founder of Fuel Talent, and we met a couple of years ago through the Seattle startup scene, and you actually had me as a guest on your very successful podcast, which was super fun. I got to go back when we all met up in person. I got to go to your recording studio, which was sweet. So it's been fun to stay in touch and talk, and I'm really glad that you're here to talk about what you love. So let's start this off with the first question, which is, who or what are you a fan of?
The who part is crazy because I'm a people lover. I am a fan of passionate people and people who do what they say and say what they mean, and kind of people that you can trust. I am a fan. I'm actually a huge consumer. I'm guessing that's why you probably have me on here, because I'm like, why do I get to be on your awesome podcast? Thank you for having me. I love consuming brands, but I'm not necessarily so loyal that I don't try other brands. I just, I try to follow fashion and I try to watch what's coming out. And if I like something, then I'm the person who is like the super spreader of information about that thing.
Yeah. And so one brand you're a fan of that we're going to talk about today, you brought something, right?
Show yes. And you mentioned the podcast. I have my Peloton shoes.
Yeah.
And they're probably stinky. I don't know how many rides I'm at least 500. I'm obsessed with my Peloton. But I've had so many guests on the podcast that are also huge Peloton riders that it's kind of the thing I love about that brand is its ability to create community. And I think they have incredible instructors who I feel connected to. And now I follow several of them on Instagram, and I feel like they're like my friends. And the funny part about Peloton, I know you're a rider also, is I think that you choose the instructor based on your mood. Like if I want an ass whooping, I'll do like an Alex Toussaint class. If I want to feel like love and kind of acceptance, I'll do a Cody class. Inspiration will be like a Robin class. So it's just different depending on the mood. And I think that that's incredible that brand can touch me in so many different ways under one umbrella.
I totally agree. And yeah, I'm a huge Peloton fan. And I think, when you adopt something that changes your lifestyle.
Who are your favorite instructors?
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
It's probably the hot girls. I'm guessing it's like the cute girls. That's my husband.
So number one is Alex Toussaint. I love hip hop. I grew up in the 90s with rap, R&B. Like that was what I listened to. And so working out to the music that he picks, first and foremost, like grabbed me. I was like, oh yeah, he and I have similar music.
Yes.
And he does this like weekly Saturday morning ride, Club Bangers, at 10:30 every Saturday. And I have two buddies who join me regularly. So that's like our date, 10:30 in the morning on Saturday, we're going to go ride the live ride. And then we usually tack on something afterwards. And it's just so great. And he pushes you, like you said, an ass whooping. I'm like, he's like, I think a military kid, like a military school kid growing up. And he's barking at you a little bit. He's pushing you. And I love that. I grew up doing martial arts, and my martial arts master was like that. So it just works for me. But I could see how a lot of people wouldn't have that.
Some people said they don't like his counting. And I find the counting very soothing and reassuring. And it also helps me kind of zone out a little bit.
Yeah, totally. And I think, so like my list of top 5 goes him for sure. And then it goes Emma Lovewell, Olivia, Dennis, and then Jess King.
Oh, interesting. All depending on your mood. Jess King is like, woo, ready to go party. Oh no, I'm thinking of Jess King, and then Jess Sims for like weights. I love her.
Oh yeah. Weights. I totally love her for weights. Yeah, that's true. Like, so I'm just talking about cycling instructors, but then they, like you're saying, right? They manage to connect with us in multiple areas. So Jess Sims for weights. And then I think Chase Tucker for weights. I like what he does.
And Robin is the OG. I mean, she's amazing. You saw their stock prices like in the shitter though, right? Like, am I allowed to say that on here?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, good. My
Yeah.
podcast, someone said that to me like 30 episodes in. They're like, do you let people swear? I'm like, I'm pretty sure because I swear. I tend to swear. And I'm pretty sure my guests all swear. And then I'm like, uh-oh, do I have to go back and like edit them all? But no. Okay. So yeah, their stock price, I mean, it's not doing well.
No, no. So this is an interesting thing, right? Like, let's talk about Peloton, the business, and Peloton as us as customers. I see their stock price and I see the challenges they've gone through the last 6 months. It sounds like they overinvested, they got ahead of their ski tips in terms of like manufacturing production and spending cash. But then I'm like, I would never cancel.
No, I'm never canceling. Honestly, it's my safety net of assurance that I'll get a workout in, because even if I've now gotten in the zone where I will be, if I have 10 minutes, I'll do a 10-minute arms.
Right.
And I used to only be, before the pandemic, kind of get up, try to be out the door by 6 something in the morning to get a workout in at a gym. And that tacks on, 15 to 20 to 30 minutes on each side. And I was like, well, either I'm working out or I'm not. And now I'm like, you know what, Shauna, be gentle on yourself. Peloton messaging is very kind of loving. And, if I've got 5 minutes to breathe, I'll do that through Peloton, or 10 minutes of arms, or 20-minute lower body. So I feel like that just gives me some assurance that I'll freaking do something. Otherwise I might, sit around and eat bonbons.
Like, were you this way before you got the Peloton in terms of working out? The
Yeah.
mentality of like, I need to get it in. It's really important
Yes.
to me.
Yes, I was a college athlete. Like, I'm an athlete, and I consider myself to be, even though I don't necessarily physically look like one now, 50 years old, but like, I see myself, as far as my mental health, being linked to whether or not I can get a workout in. I just like to feel strong and a little bit fit, but I definitely took it up a level with the Peloton.
What was it about the Peloton, right, that helped
I
you
was a
do that?
hater. I mean, people would be like Peloton. I'd be like, psh, whatever. I'm so not doing that. It's not my thing. I would be in like a hotel gym and I would just walk past it and be like, that thing's weird. I can't imagine. Because I was huge into Soul Cycle.
Oh, so
I
you
liked
like
to
you
go
knew
in
the
person.
okay.
I liked sweating on a bike. I liked spinning. I couldn't really picture myself being as motivated being alone in my bed. I mean, ours is in our bedroom. It's like not attractive place to have we actually have two. We also have our other like cycling bike is also. So our room is, turned into a like mini gym. And then when I started doing the boot camp classes, I had to put a little set of weights. So now it's like not attractive in the bedroom, but at least I can just have that mindset, which I love, of like, all I need are my spin shoes that I brought today to talk to you, because it's just like I throw on my clothes, throw on the shoes, and I'm off to the races. And I'm not overly judgmental about like, well, I didn't get in 45 minutes of like fat burning. I'm just more like, let me just sweat for 20 minutes and I'm fine with it. So I do think that they've got a strong hold, and that I liked it because of the small increments, and also the teachers. The teachers make a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing you say, right? Number one is you've always considered yourself an athlete, and that piece of your internal self-perception, your identity, Peloton as a brand is reflecting back to you. It's like reinforcing that, giving you, in many ways, the encouragement and the way to keep reinforcing that piece of your identity.
Yes, you're talking about it through the perspective of like a marketer, which I appreciate. I never really thought about it like that, but yes, I think it is resonating with me as an athlete. I also, like you, am huge in music. I'm the person who, like, during the class will Shazam the song and then downplay it, because I haven't figured out how to get it. I know I'm like saving it somehow to my Spotify, but it hasn't actually shown up on my Spotify. But I'm creating playlists while I'm writing. Like, I
Yeah.
love music, and I think they've accessed me for sure through the playlists. When I do the filters, I do it by that. I'll do like, I've got 30 minutes. I want to listen to hip hop and I want to do like lower body. And if I start and it's like, they don't catch me in that first song, or like the vibe is off, if I'm trying to be open-minded and try a new teacher, I'm like, I'm out, on to the next. But I love the variety, and I just love the content they've created.
Yeah. Well, and because this is what, this podcast, right? What we're trying to explore is this connection of emotion and behavior and what drives it and taps into it. And so I think, like, for you, there's this identity piece that they're tapping into. And then there's something else, which is you started out as a hater, right? You're skeptical. And then
Yes.
now you're an evangelist. So what do you tell people now when you're like, oh, you got to get into this? I was a hater, but this is what changed. What do you tell them?
Well, I'll tell them like if they're at a hotel or at a gym or somewhere where they can just try a ride, and then I'll tell them, if you're not feeling it right away, try a different instructor like quickly, because like when I got introduced and I was asking people about their favorite instructors, a lot of people love like Emma Lovewell, and I think
Mhm.
she's beautiful and but somehow she triggers me. Like I feel slightly less than around her. Like I don't feel great about myself after an Emma Lovewell. I love Kendall because she like talks about her mental health struggles and she's, whips her hair around and I think also plays some good music. But I think it just depends on who you emotionally connect with. And it really is like a people thing. And so I'll tell them to try different instructors. And I'm pretty confident that they wouldn't return it. But I think that maybe even Peloton has can't you like try it and maybe send
I
it
think it's like
back?
30 days or 45
Yeah. So
days.
I'm like
Yeah,
kind of like
sure.
it. I just say to them, like, trust me, I was a gym rat and on top of it, don't really love the idea of just spinning, but they've got so many different modalities. But I do go to the gym. I mean, my brother owns an amazing gym that I love to go to called True Fusion, which has hot classes. You can't really get that same
Right.
heated sweat feeling through a Peloton, but I think it's really nice to have, um, different modalities that you can use. And Peloton's like great. So I always tell people like, just try it. It can't hurt. And I've also like you, like probably sold a bunch of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I've definitely know because I've gotten the referral credit for gear, which is just genius on their part, right? They're like, hey, you're going to get credit to buy more of our gear, which is then going to like reinforce, get on the Peloton workout. And then like, here's the brand and let me maybe
Yes.
advertise. It's
Yeah. Do you
so
ever go on the
smart.
video, Robi? Like when you're riding with those friends, the Club Bangers class at 10:30? Do you guys do the video?
We've done it a couple times, but it's
It's
distracting.
weird.
It's
It's so
distracting.
distracting. I'm not
Yeah,
into it.
I'd rather just have the music cranking and then catch up with them afterwards. I'm like, I'm
Yes.
working here. I don't want
Yes.
to have you look at my sweaty face.
And how long is that class? Is it a 45-minute class?
He alternates. Some I think like 3 out of 4 are 30, and then 1 out of 4 is 45.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, maybe I'll do it. Tomorrow I'm going to the gym, but maybe I'll try to get in that after.
Oh, you should totally. Like, you can just plan on me being there. That's for sure, on a regular basis. So the thing about this, right? I'm picking up identity, and then there's an aspect of evangelism, and you're telling people, hey, you're going to get into this because you're going to find connection. You're going to find instructors you like. You're going to find music or styles that you like. Trust me, you will find that. That's what's going to keep you here. What's it like when somebody loses you as a fan? Right. And we were talking about this before we started
Hmm.
recording. Like, what's it like when somebody loses you?
Yeah. I'm not, those people that just like bash, businesses. And then you realize like, if you're looking at Yelp and you're seeing like negative reviews of like some sort of business, you always realize that there are haters out there that are just kind of going around looking at the world through that lens of like, you're going to fail me, you're going to let me down.
Yeah.
I think that, the Nordstrom mentality and the Nordstrom way is amazing. And I had like, that kind of like the customer's always right. I think it's really, really important to treat your customers really well and to personalize some sort of gratitude. And if there is a mistake, to own it and to maybe give them a reason to come back instead of just apologizing. Maybe there's some sort of like on your next purchase, there's a somehow percentage off or somehow, um, some incentive to get you back in the door. But I'm just thinking about like retailers because I do like to shop. They would probably lose me if they didn't they didn't read their audience and they kind of were too rigid in their principles around like a return or something. I actually was just in Los Angeles with a girlfriend at a store. We were shopping and she had bought a beautiful gold bracelet at this store, very high end store. and she was purchasing other things. She bought it like, 2 months ago or something, and they shipped it. And now we're in the store in person, and she's trying to return it to say, like, I know it's real, but somehow it's like turning my skin green, which is usually means it's not real, or there's some sort of metal, something is wrong. And the manager comes up and is basically looking at her in her eyes, and she has no idea. My friend could have bought a lot of things in the store and was purchasing other things in the store, and said, well, that just can't be, and was like arguing with her. And, she's purchasing a bunch of stuff. I'm purchasing a bunch of stuff. And I'm like looking at the woman who's helping me. And I'm like, I used to work retail. I grew up in the fashion industry in my family. And I'm like, this is just no bueno. And my girlfriend was super chill and quiet about the whole thing. But I was thinking they better turn this into a yes, and we've got it quickly, because I think I probably would have said something, but my style, if it's a restaurant or it's retail, I usually say like, hey, I've worked in your industry. If it were my business, I would want to know blah, blah, blah. And then I'll give them my personal feedback about the experience I'm having. And I'll say like, do with it what you will, but I feel like it's my duty because I love this brand to give you this like live feedback. But I won't go blast it on social media. I won't, spend a bunch of time stewing on it or sharing it with other people. I've never told anybody that this happened last week. But it was just a turnoff.
That's really okay. So there are two, for me, kind of novel pieces of this, which is the first, you're willing to take action and tell them like in moment
Always.
that something's going wrong, which is, I think it's quite unusual. What we see is like 90% of the time customers won't talk, they'll just leave.
Yeah.
So for you to speak up, that's a gift in and of itself. You're giving them an opportunity to keep you. So that's novel. And then the second is you don't actually use it as currency to go complain. Right?
No, whereas, I don't try to get anything out of it. But the irony is it's like, my saying for it is like a velvet hammer, or like kill them with honey. Like, I think you get I've gotten a lot of things, kind of upgraded or handed by doing that because they're grateful. And I never would do it in front of anyone else. It's just like one-to-one, like business to business. But I do realize, I think that is unique.
So you give people a chance, right? Before you break up with them, you're giving them a chance. You're saying, I'm going to give you some feedback. And I heard you say a retail and restaurant. Mm-hmm. Is it across the board you will give people a chance, or are there industries?
Well, it's interesting is as you were saying that, I was like, you know what, it doesn't matter if it's some little mom and pop store that doesn't even have quite a brand yet, or if it's some huge brand. I'm actually less likely to kind of go the extra mile for a huge brand, not because I don't think they would hear me, but because it just seems like more cumbersome to like go on some website, try to track down who to email. If it's super easy, I will absolutely. And I'll usually say, hey, can you call me? The problem is like, nobody has time. People, especially in the Amazon world that we're living in, where people want things shipped, same day. There are huge supply chain issues right now across every industry. And I think consumers who are not a little bit grateful and a little bit patient just don't get it. And who was I just talking to? It was like, I think it was like I had these people on my podcast, a new company, they're just crushing it. And they're actually, one of their biggest issues right now, I said, what are you kind of losing sleep over? They're having supply chain issues. And so I said, how are your customers? Are they being patient, or are they kind of pissed at you, thinking like somehow you dropped the ball? And I'm a big fan of like over communicating and getting ahead of it, so that you can kind of manage expectations. I don't want to be the one that's sitting at home, like kind of pissed that something hasn't arrived when I thought it was going to arrive. If the company has told me like, I know we told you it was going to be Thursday, we're so sorry, this has happened, please enjoy 10% off the next blah, blah, blah. I'm quadrupling down on that company.
Yeah. So there's a really important piece of the cycle that companies can pick up on, which is if Shauna speaks up and you make it right, now you win Shauna back times 10, right? Like you're actually all in. You're like,
especially if they're proactive about it. If I don't have to be the one to bring it up, if they're getting ahead of it. This is what I try to tell the team. And, I don't think I actually did a great job of this at Fuel, but I do say, if a company's sitting there and they're thinking we're sourcing candidates for them and they're waiting around to be like, okay, I need to hire this engineer, I need to hire this marketing person, and we're coming up short because the market is like insane right now. There's a massive war on talent. They're not expecting us to be like pull some genie out of a bottle. Everybody knows that the market's shitty right now. It's very hard to get good talent, especially now with this like new Amazon announcement, paying people $350. It's not helpful for the startup community. But if we can get ahead of it and say, hey, we spoke to these 5 people and this was the feedback, or hey, I know you said these were the requirements, maybe we could tweak this, this, and this, because or maybe like, hey, we're going out to market, we're not getting great traction, and this is why, because the comp is off, and we need to kind of be consultative toward you and be partner like with you, versus be a vendor that's like throwing kind of shit against the wall and hoping something sticks, which is how a lot of recruiters operate. I think that is how I like to think about our brand, because it's not, we don't have a product, we have a service. And so in the services industry, it's really about communication and being consultative and being knowledge experts in what it is that you're selling, more than it is like, my product's supposed to work and it doesn't work and you're supposed to get it on time. It's so amorphous what we're doing. Like, I don't know if I'll get talent, maybe.
Right. And so that's where, you come back to this being proactive, right? And I think you're saying at Fuel, there's an opportunity, right? You're telling your team to be proactive or work, to set expectations to help people understand some of the challenges. How often are you trying to incorporate into the work you do and the people you lead this notion of showing up proactively before problems happen to let them know, or when problems happen to double down on listening? Like, how do you fuel that thing that you want as a fan, as a customer? How do you make your team deliver that for people?
Well, you're making me realize I need to do it more. We just have conversations and sometimes we give examples, but oftentimes we're talking about wins. I'm realizing we just do a once a week kind of company stand up, and we do a lot of wins or new clients, or, how we stuck with it, and this deal that was maybe going to go south closed, or the candidate that we submitted back in October just got a $30,000 increase, and it afforded them the ability to like put a down payment on a house. Like, there's like really beautiful stories that come out of recruiting, which are awesome. But we have a Slack channel kind of called like Shit Gone South, and it's never filled out. And then all of a sudden, sometimes I'll realize like something's kind of going south. Nothing's south like, oh, we've lost this client, they fired us. That doesn't happen. But it's more like, the candidate is decided at the 11th hour that they kind of want to see Facebook through. And it's like, what do you mean you didn't even tell us you were interviewing at Facebook? Like, how? And so that would require the recruiter to like spend like 3 to 4 times as much time on every conversation, because you're having a conversation, you're getting all the intake, and then a lot of things happen in people's lives. And as recruiters, we're not necessarily speaking to them every day to be like, oh, you submitted that resume before you even knew who I was, and they called you back in, and now that shifted everything, but I didn't know about that. So a lot of it is just like getting ahead of it on that very first conversation to be like, this is what I expect from you, candidate, so that I can give my client, because it's this whole like, it's like a marketplace, like a really good experience by managing expectations, because our candidates have told us what's going on. I don't know if this is making sense, but like.
Oh, I think it is. And I think if I can interject, what I'm curious about is like, it's not your channel that you've got for this is not as active maybe as you would expect. Like, what are your mechanisms, or how do you think about the mechanisms of kind of checking in on saying, is this because we're not having many things go south, or is it because we're not talking about it as much?
I think it's because we're not having a lot of things go south because we've got great relationships. I think that we're building relationships for the long haul. We're not thinking about just transacting today and like on to the next client. We're really trying to build very long, sticky, deep, meaningful relationships with our clients and our candidates. The problem is just sheer volume. Like, there's just so many moving parts that most of the recruiters I'm talking to are booked on the half hour every hour. They're doing so many interviews, so many intake calls, getting the details of this job, prepping the candidate for this one, getting the debrief from that one, checking a reference. There's so many moving parts that all those nice to haves, like I would love to cook dinner every night for my family, and I would love to floss every night, like all those extras that are like, but if I don't, like, it'll be fine. We can always order in, we can always like floss the next day. We can sometimes push those things down the road of like, I should probably call that candidate and give him really meaningful feedback about why he didn't get that job, versus just sending him an email and be like, we're so sorry, Robi's team decided to pass on you and this was why. Like, this is a human on the other end who just got bad news. And the really lovely, amazing, high touch service would be, hey, Jonathan, would love to schedule a call with you and really spend time giving meaningful feedback. It's just, it's a sheer like bandwidth issue. And sometimes those things can make either a candidate or a client not have they're always having like really good experiences. I get amazing feedback on service about fuel, but I want to have a like, holy shit experience. Like, wow, that was above and beyond. And those above and beyond things, we send a gift basket to everyone on their first day. That feels above and beyond. The candidates that get jobs not through us, like above and beyond would be like sending them a handwritten note to congratulate them, checking in with them a month into their job that we didn't place them in, to just be like, just truly like closing the loop with all these humans that we talk to. And it's just so hard because every single day there's new business coming in, and lots of companies want to see a lot of volume, and it's just hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question, but
Well, no, I think so. I think you did. And, I think what I'm pulling out of that is that the notion of measurements around where you might be failing or not doing your best to engender customer love in your industry, because so much of it is service oriented, is kind of use your best judgment, right? So what you're probably struggling with is, how do you encourage people who are moving really fast, your recruiters who are booked back to back to back, to operate like you would in a situation where somebody,
well, that I would want to, yes, aspirationally. Yeah.
But like that situation where you're at a restaurant and they messed up your order and you're like, hey, I want to give you some feedback right now because I want you to improve. I want this to get better. And that like piece of you that is inherent in how you show up for businesses.
Yeah.
You want, I think, everybody on your team to be picking up any of those cues that might be happening.
Yes.
And
I do a couple things that you just reminded me of. One is I'm very clear that our approach to business, because recruiters have bad names, just like real estate brokers or lawyers, like anyone in the service industry, where you're like, you can kind of be a volume play where you're just trying to kind of get fees. And I want the mentality of like, give, give, give. So even a candidate that we can't place, or a client that we aren't necessarily sure we're going to work with, or any relationship, I want them to think of Fuel as a company they can go to get, current day information around comp, or what we are seeing in the market, or how people are onboarding or thinking about remote work right now. Or just in general, just all things where we are thought of as their partner. I don't want them to think of us as a vendor. And so I do get ahead of that conversation with the team a lot, to say like a real give, or a candidate we can't place, give them a sample resume, or quickly scrub their LinkedIn and make sure that it looks, as strong as possible. Those are all like beautiful beautiful nice to haves, and hopefully they're happening. The data that we do look at, and it doesn't get as granular as I would like, but we look at deals where we look at if you're giving me a job to help you find a CMO, and I would be looking at submittals to interviews, interviews to offers, and offers to acceptances. And so I wouldn't necessarily be able to assess the experience of the candidate or you necessarily perfectly, but I would be able to see where there's like a cog in the wheel, like, hey, we got some really good traction with a lot of incredible candidates that we sourced, and Robi agreed to interview 5 out of 5, and 5 out of 5 made it to the next round. but he made 3 offers or were all declined. Did they get declined because people don't want to work there? Or did we not manage expectations properly? Or did they get other offers and the market's just too crazy? Did Robi move too slow? Did we move too slow? So a lot of that just tells a story where we can then say to the client, like, this is what we assessed, and like, let's discuss it. That's the part that I'm not quite sure is happening, that I actually are giving me like good, good stuff to manage to the team.
I'm super glad to hear that, right? Because I think, to me, one of the things that's really cool about engendering emotional relationships with customers is that it is like a one-to-one battle, right? Like large brands, we work with these large consumer brands, these companies who have millions of customers. They often think that it's impossible to make the individual happy, that they have built a system that hopefully makes a lot of people happy, or at least gets through their funnel and then purchases stuff from them. But then they struggle with the idea of making an individual happy. And, you're on the other side of this. It's just like the whole business is individuals.
The whole business is individuals. I think I do get feedback about the brand, that people like the brand. They like the feeling that they have from the brand. I have had people say that to me, and then I kind of ask them why. And the words they use make me happy, because it's like, well, it feels boutiquey. It feels like you seem like you're in the know. I think some people are emotionally connected to the fact that we're like women owned. They like that there's, some diversity on the team. Like there's certain things that like connect with them, but in the services industry, I think until you've actually worked with us, I don't know that you would have I think they might just be seeing the brand, like the visuals of the brand, which I like. I mean, I personally like our logo and our swag, and our office is really cool, and cool, podcast guests. And so some of those things give people a feeling of like, oh, this is like a real company. We do hear that because, there's lots of mommy poppy kind of 2 people in a garage type of recruiting firms. But I think in a services industry, it is like, just experience us, and then you'll have a better sense, and you'll see that hopefully the cream will rise to the top and you won't use other agencies. That's how we like to think about it.
And through the lens, like bringing it back to you as a customer, right? So you don't like to publicly shame companies that have done poorly by you, and you will break up with them, right? So like, what is the consistent thing that you break up with companies around? Is there like one thing in particular, like, yeah, this failure happened?
It would be like lack of customer service, or ending up in like Never Never Land, like a big company. If I just couldn't call somebody and I needed to deal with something, I know it's happened to me and I can't think of the brand, where I'm just like over them. Like I'm not going to risk, I like, I'm not going to risk not being able to return something because I do online shopping a lot. I don't want to deal with some company who's like, sorry, we don't take returns. It's like 35 days instead of 30 days. Where I feel that it's just they're managing to the policy and not necessarily seeing like, oh, but this is her first purchase here, or this is not like the 5th time she's done this, so she's never done this before. Like if I was trying to return something and it was like, sorry, it's a 30-day and it was actually 34 days, they would win me times 10 if it was like a personalized email that's like, I'm so sorry this didn't work out. We value your business. We want you back. Please tell us exactly why you're returning it, and if we can offer some other, curated items that you may like. And for this one time, I would be like, oh, thanks. Like we made an exception, cost them nothing. And I don't know what company I read about. Maybe it was someone on my podcast. I don't know if is it Starbucks? I can't remember which company it is, but they give them like a kitty to play with. A little bit of wiggle room of maybe like up to $2,000 to just throw money at a quick solution for a customer. And I can't remember it.
This is sounding familiar. Like the
Right?
customer service agents have like a
They have some
budget,
wiggle
right?
room. They have a
Yeah,
little
totally.
budget to just like quickly make an on the spot decision without being like, let me take this up through the ranks and let this customer wait.
Yeah.
But when I hear people just like whining and bitching and freaking out like customers, I get that you never know what's going on in that person's life and they're misdirecting sometimes that energy. Maybe something happened at home, but I think that I can't imagine going to that level. I would have to feel wronged or taken advantage of, or that I was dealing with someone completely incompetent on the other side. And then I would absolutely ask to speak with someone else. And I would always start from a place of like, I'm a business owner, I'm a consumer, and I want to just like take it up to this like 30,000 foot level of like concept around customer service, not like a $5 discussion.
Right. Yep. And that's where you're showing up as a customer who's concerned with the system, and you're
Yeah.
thinking about how to make them better.
Yeah.
I think that's so
I have an
interesting.
example of a company that that I think is doing a really good job. They're local and I actually know the owners. This is like Pagliacci pizza.
Oh yeah.
We order from them a lot. What I appreciate about that brand is that they are consistent. It's definitely expensive. It's like, are you kidding me? We just spent $23 on like a small pizza. You know, it's expensive, but it's consistent. It's delicious. They have an incredible interface with the app. It makes it very, very easy. And the one time that like, I think they sent, 4 garlic breads instead of 8 or something happened, or they were supposed to send chocolate chip cookies and they didn't, like something happened. They personally called me on my phone and were like, I just wanted to say, we're so sorry that this happened. And then we're going to send you a gift card for your next. And I was just like, wow. And I remember running into our friends a friend of mine from high school started it. And I was like, you're running a really well-oiled machine over there. Like, not only did I get a great experience, but your team was super proactive and they weren't just like, hi, yeah, it's us. They were like, hey, Shauna, we really appreciate it. It was like, I felt like I was their only customer. And they don't know that I know the owner, like the random customer
Yeah,
service
right. Like
person.
they don't have a reason to treat you special. It's an indication that this is
No.
what they do. It's just
Yes.
their process.
Yes. I'll tell you a company that I really like, but that I don't think they would lose me, but that I can get heated about, and that's airlines.
Oh yeah.
Things like a month ago, I took my kids to a lacrosse tournament and I took them on Alaska, and the lacrosse bags go into like oversized, and that that whole thing of like we don't get back for within 20 minutes or something, you come see us.
Yep.
This woman was like helping me and then was kind of like, sorry, like go to aisle, wanted me to walk all the way down. It was like late at night. I had my kids and on a deal. And I was kind of like, really? She like sent me away. And then when I came back to kind of give her the update, she wanted me to go to the very back of a line of like 10 people.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just coming back to like follow up with you on something we were already dealing with. And she basically said, go right there and come back. And she just had this weird vibe that was kind of almost like doing it for sport, like trying to kind of play a power play with me. That type of stuff is insane. Like inefficiency makes me crazy
Yeah.
in life. And when it's somebody that's trying to get business, and I'm like, I wanted to be like, I'm gold or whatever I am, platinum. I wanted to freak out on her, like hotels and airlines that I'm, a platinum member of. I can get a little bit like really direct as far as like, this is not cool. And I think that those employees should be empowered to make on the spot decisions quickly.
Right. So hotels and airlines, both very, very strong adopters of loyalty programs. And then
Yes,
you're a
right.
member
If
of
you're
them.
in the member, that's my point, is if
Yeah.
I'm a member, I'm a Starwood member, Bonvoy member, Alaska, all of those things. Um, my brother gets crazy upgrades and I'm like, what are you doing? He sometimes calls ahead and will be like, I'm coming, and and then they really roll out the red carpet. And in my mind, every single person should get that level. That's just like an extra move that he's doing because he's smart and he's like savvy like that. And I'm not saying I can't, but I'm like, ugh, I don't have time. I don't want to deal. And to me, when they're like, oh, welcome back, so lovely to see you, and we've upgraded you, even if even if they're not, even if it's not true, or even if it's like a minor upgrade, or hey, would you like free Wi-Fi or free breakfast? I just think that those extra little things, it's probably just mental, but it makes you feel a little bit more loyal.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's mental. I think it's emotional, right? I think that's what it's
That's what I
tapping
mean. It
into.
might just be emotional.
I think like And
what emotion though, Robi? Like, what are we talking? I know the emotions. I have the emotion wheel. I know all about emotions, but I feel like, are we talking pride? Are we talking confidence? Like, what emotion are we tapping into?
well, so I think let's explore this for a minute, because I'm thinking that when you get me to join your loyalty program, right, and I take that first step, we know full well when we join a loyalty program that for the most part, the loyalty program is built for them to track us and try to get us into their silo of choices more often than other silos of choices, especially again with hotels and airlines. It's like, instead of choosing Delta, you're going to choose Alaska because you're a member of this. So we know when we're stepping into this relationship that there's a win for them, right? So I think part of the emotion is the sense of like, well, I thought we had an agreement that if I was to do this, you were going to do this thing that made me feel like you treated me better, that it was worth it for me. So then I think we've entered into an agreement where maybe they're letting us down, right? Maybe the emotion is you're like, wow, you disappointed me.
Mm. Yeah, I can see that. And the hard part in Seattle, because I'm a big Alaska Airlines person, is like everybody's.
Yeah.
So I get to the airport, I'm like, I'd actually rather be in the other line because everybody's in this like VIP line. And I don't even feel like a VIP. And the older I get, the more I get like, I don't want to be in lines. Like maybe there's a way you can kind of, I don't know, somehow figure that part out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so, and I think like, again, it's this sense of, it's not just the numbers, it's not just the miles that I get, it's also like how you make me feel. And so you can 80% of the time, I think I'm hearing you say, make me feel great because I'm Alaska MVP and I get some upgrades. But that 20% of the time where I show up late at night to get my oversized luggage with my kids and you don't treat me well, the other 80% doesn't really matter to me. Right.
100%. Just feel like it's like we just took 2 steps forward and 10 steps back, and you didn't need to. It could have been just even like a different level of eye contact, not because I'm some sort of like VIP or loyalty member, but just because I'm like that whole like I have my choice of airlines, like um and because I feel like when people are traveling, and specifically if you're going to go into that industry or into hospitality in general, you have to have a certain demeanor about you because people are, I always think about that on airplanes. I'm like, when people are like rude to the flight attendant or the flight attendant's rude, I'm like, people are like, imagine we don't know where these people are flying. They could be flying to a funeral. They could be flying to see their dad they haven't seen in 30 years. Like they they could be going to college and just left their family. Like emotions are running. They could be super psyched because they're going on a trip and, but also stressed because they're leaving work. Like emotions are high on an airplane. And I feel like in order to be in that industry, you have to be somehow have a soothing, calm, warm, loving presence and make people feel safe and emotionally safe um, that you're not going to like strip them of something that they thought was going to be a comfort that they might have.
Right. Yeah. I think that makes a ton of sense. And like, the people who are delivering that experience for you matter just as much as everything that leads up to it, and arguably more, right? Because they have to have that nuance. So even a large consumer brand like Alaska is dealing with the same struggle you are, right? At fuel, you want that end interaction, human to human, to feel like, yep, I matter, I see you.
Yeah, totally.
Well, this has been super awesome. I really enjoyed this, talking about this, exploring it, and I think that what you're doing at Fuel is amazing. Like clearly,
Oh,
you've built a great culture. Like what you're talking about, I hear, right? I see it out in the market. I hear other people saying, yeah, this is not like those big recruiters, right? Which are just email farms, and it's not a mom and pop shop. So I think your
thank you.
sense of your brand is pretty awesome. So where can people find out more about what you're doing?
Well, we've got our website, fueltalent.com, and on there is information about all of our open roles and the areas that we specialize in, which are sales, marketing, product, HR, admin, and tech. And then we do that for contract and full-time positions. And we also have information about our podcast, which is called What Fuels You, where we've had over 100, I think we're at about 160 guests that have been on, including you, Robi. So thank you. Um, Yeah, most of the information is there, and the business is changing because of the remote work situation. Companies are calling from all over, candidates are calling from all over, and we're just trying to navigate it all and keep that high touch customer service at the forefront, which is what I lose sleep over personally.
Yeah.
So you gave me some really good food for thought today that I'm going to take back to my team. I don't know how, but I'm going to try to implement what we talked about in some sort of raw discussion.
Love it. So maybe we should catch up in 6 months and talk about like
Yes.
how that's changed, what it's making you think about to go be more proactive, right? To institute more of some of the things that you want to see and you feel like it's hard to fit in. We're going to include links to your site and also to the podcast, which is
Oh,
it's pretty fantastic. What Fuels You is definitely a podcast not just about recruiting, but like purpose and meaning. So I think it's a great listen for anybody who's out there looking for some more information about passion in the pursuit of happiness through career choices as well.
that's
Um,
awesome. Thanks. I appreciate that. I'm so honored.
and to everybody who tuned in and listened to this, thanks so much. Be sure to like and subscribe, as the young ones say these days, so that we can continue to tell these stories. Have a great day, Shauna.
You too.